Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Let's talk about not overly investing in your job. So, a few days ago, I made a video titled, "Do Not Let Your Employer Abuse You." And I basically discussed how they will just work you to death. And then in the end, you know, if you are interested in promoting or you're interested in a raise or something that's gonna better your financial situation, they're not going to necessarily be so inclined to do so because of the fact that they know, hey, in this position, we know that he is going, or he or she is going to be usable when we need help, right? When there's time off, PTO for other people, and you are there, they know that you're there to cover, right? So here's another, this is kind of like a part two, I guess, to that video. Overly investing, right? Emotionally investing in your job, right? So what does that kind of entail? Well, that kind of entails that you don't have any other options, right? And I also made a video titled "The Importance of Having Options in the Job Market," right? Now, I know the job market is tough right now across the board in pretty much every state in the US, right? But what I will say is that emotionally investing in your job is an L. It's an all-around L, especially if you don't fit into the DEI or affirmative action quotas that are set up in most corporations. It's very difficult to get what you want, right? And I'm not saying that you can't get lucky or your hard work won't be noticed or it won't pay off in some beneficial way to you. But what I'm really trying to aim at here is you need to put yourself first, right? And this goes for every area of your life, right? There's always a power dynamic in your relationship to women, in your relationship to your coworkers, in your relationship to corporations and jobs, right? That's just how humans are, right? We have egos, we're dualistic, we have self-interest, and that's just how power works, right? Everyone's trying to seek power over their life, right? And unfortunately, some people use others to exploit them to gain more power for themselves, i.e. more women, i.e. more money, i.e. better social status, etc., right? The list goes on. So overly investing in your job is not the way to go, and I'll tell you why. So, a few months back, my boss, I don't know what it was, but he was really underperforming, and I'm not gonna lie, I called the DR and had a conversation about his performance, and I said, listen, this is a problem. Our numbers are down, things aren't getting done, things aren't really being kept up with like they normally are, right? And I was like, what do we, I basically said, like, hey, I don't think he's a bad guy, but what do we do about this? And he basically said, have a conversation with him, okay, great, cool. Had a conversation, and then the DR said he was gonna stop by the location and talk to him about his performance, right? So I don't know what was said between them two, and I really don't care, but I had that conversation with my boss, right? And he said, yeah, you're right, whatever, right? Just trying to not start any problems, right? So of course he's gonna say, yeah, I can do better, I'll start doing that, right? And I'm gonna be honest, guys, for the past 6 months, 5 or 6 months, nothing's really changed, right? And what I've learned after that experience, right, after having that conversation and after seeing how people above me work, your superiors, right, in a job environment who are above you, like, you're basically out of your store or location, right? The people who kind of like work remotely and kind of just come in here and there to check up on things, right? Those people that make $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, right? They have so many other things to worry about, as far as like their responsibilities. Like they're responsible, district managers are responsible for multiple locations. DRs are responsible for like whole different, like multiple counties, right, in a state as it pertains to the job, right, or the company. So with that being said, right, your little problem that you are so obsessed about solving, right? And I'm not saying it's not a real logical issue that needs to be solved, right? It is 95% of the time, most of the time. But job, like higher ups, right? they have multiple locations, right? And you got to think about it this way. $150,000 a year is really good money. $200,000, $300,000 a year is great money, right? You know, you can provide for a family, right? You can enjoy your life. You can take vacations if you want. You can, you know, just enjoy life, right? So you got to think, you got to put your mind in your higher up's eyes and think, like, what are they focused on? What are they thinking about? And, you know, I don't ask them because I don't care, right? I really don't give a shit. But, you know, they're focused on, like, their profits, and more importantly, they're focused on appeasing to the people above them. They're focused on their social status and making sure their reputation isn't harmed, right? So with that being said, right, they're obviously, and they're also focused on not losing their position, right? So it's a very fear-based approach when you get higher up, because you make that much money and you're like, oh, I need to hold on to this position, you know, I can't lose it. And I also can't lose my reputation, because if I lose my reputation or my social status, or, you know, my boss doesn't like me, then I'm not going to get promoted further on. I'm not going to make as much money. I'm not going to be able to provide for my family, etc., etc. The survival situation goes on in their head. And the way they look at it is the less the better. So the less problems they have to deal with, especially if it pertains to you, right? They're not going to necessarily be there. You know, you guys might think your problem needs to be fixed, and, you know, they might even say, hey, we need to fix this problem, and this matters to us, and, you know, we hear you. But, you know, there's been many times, and, you know, I used that example a second ago just to illustrate my point, but there's been many times where there's an issue, and, you know, the higher up, the OS says, yeah, you know, we'll handle that. You know, I want to make, you know, your voice heard, and, you know, this and that. And then, like, you know, weeks later or a few days later, nothing happens. There's no action being done, right? There's no documentation. There was no conversation had, right? They just listened to what you had to say, right? And then they discard it, right? Because it's like, hey, if you're someone who's higher up, right? If you say the wrong thing, right? If you have to deal with the problem and you say the wrong thing, or you create an antagonistic relationship with someone because now you're critiquing their work, or you're basically like criticizing them, right? Even if it's constructive, right? Now you're putting yourself in a position where that person, if they don't like you now, can call the person above you and get you in trouble, right? So, you know, I know companies are so freaking like glorious for, you know, promoting like positive attitude and being humble, and, you know, yes, we hear you and we'll be here to help. And it's like, no, man, that's all fluff. That's all masking everyone's underlying fear of losing their position, or fear of like fear of their reputation being hurt. So don't be so quick to overly invest in your job, because you have to understand that people really don't care, right? They don't care about your little problems that you're having with your boss. They don't care about really the problems that you're having with your coworkers. At the end of the day, I'll tell you, there's really like 3 things they care about. They care about their money coming in. They care about their reputation not being hurt. What was the last thing? I don't know. But yeah, basically, like, that's really what they care about. They don't really care about your little problems. And they might care to some degree, but it's like, hey, man, if I'm getting paid $150,000 a year, right? The way they're looking at it is like, hey, I'm just trying to do my job description and not deal with. They're looking at it like if they don't have to deal with it, they won't deal with it, right? And it's so funny, because as much as companies want to talk about, you know, we're here to help you and we're here to assist you. No, you're not. You're just saying that to make it sound nice so people will want to keep working for you. But that's why, guys, I'm being real. I'm being authentic here. Do not overly invest in your job, in any job, right? 2 things you should always be doing. Always be actively doing. You should always be, number 1, looking for another job. You should always be submitting applications. You should always be, you know, going to interviews. And I'm not saying to be a job hopper, but as it pertains to that dynamic of switching the power back to you, right? Because if you're so dependent on one job, right, and you lose that job and you don't have any experience as it pertains to applying to other jobs, you don't have any other skills, guess who loses in the end? You lose. The people above you don't. So understand that, and that's a everlasting process. Always applying for other jobs. I know the labor market sucks right now, but we gotta keep trying, right? You gotta keep trying. And then number 2 is start your own side hustle, right? So for me, you know, I look back those past like 6 months, you know, I really started uploading consistently over the past 3 to 4 months, but I look at the past year and I'm like, wow, I could have been far more ahead in YouTube right now if I was uploading, you know, the 6 months prior to me starting back up 4 months ago, if I wasn't so invested in, you know, doing whatever my job wanted, right? And like I said, as far as it pertains to overtime, right? You know, I mentioned this in another video, but if you're new, do the overtime if you need the money, right? Don't look at it like, you know, they're abusing you. But later on, when you don't need the money, like I said, and you have other things going on, you're pursuing other things, you have the absolute right to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming in. No, I'm not covering this location. No, I'm not working on my day off. And you don't have to explain yourself as to what you're doing either. You know, I think most people feel like they need to explain themselves to their superiors about why they're not there. And it's like, dude, if you're not on the schedule, you do not have to work. It's that simple, right? And I know a lot of jobs try to, you know, especially warehouse jobs, they kind of finesse you Monday to Friday, and then next thing you know, Friday comes. Now they're like, oh, can you work Saturday? And it's like, you know, like I said, people will try to, you know, they say if you give them an inch, they take a mile. So you got to be very privy to what is going on. And just like I said, make sure you create the time for yourself to, you know, work on your side hustle, whatever it is, drop shipping, YouTube, flipping things on Facebook Marketplace. And you also need to be applying to other jobs. If you do those 2 things consistently, you're basically putting yourself first. And, you know, let's say the time comes where you are put in a situation where you could lose your job. You're not like frantic. So many people are so frantic and scared. Like, I think the biggest thing, or I could really like drive it home here, is to have an abundance mindset. Like, yo, there's plenty of jobs out there. Yo, there's plenty of side hustles to start. There's ways to make money. You can invest in crypto. You can do day trading. You can do swing trading, right? Like, there's side jobs you can do. You can do pressure washing. Like, dude, there's so much out there for you to be single-minded on this one little thing. You get what I mean? So have an abundance mindset. I mean, an abundance mindset also applies to women as well, right? You want to have an abundance mindset with your work, with women. And, you know, if you can cultivate that and understand that, and like I said, utilize job sourcing and utilize your side hustle, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But it's like I said, it's those people that don't develop themselves. It's the people that are lazy. It's the people that complain all the time. It's the people that get in, you know, situations with their bosses and they don't have another outlet. They don't have another way. Those are the people that end up miserable. Those are the people that end up in jobs, you know, for 40 years stuck, and like, damn, you know, 40 years went by and I didn't do anything because I never developed myself at all, right? So yeah, that's why you shouldn't over invest in your job, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe. If you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down below. And as always, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.